With breaches on the rise, organisations are facing pressure to fortify their defences. Can AI provide the solution?
I'm Alyssa Blackburn.
I'm Mike Loader. TechEdge starts now. Hello everyone out there, welcome to TechEdge, presented by the team at AvePoint, where each episode we delve into the latest industry trends for business IT and their significance in today's ever-changing landscape. Now, AI is rapidly integrating into our everyday lives, no secrets there, so how can we utilise it for cybersecurity? Alyssa, take us through what's going on when it comes to AI fighting fire with fire in some cases.
Yeah, so I think first of all we have to go back and remember that cybersecurity is one of the biggest threats facing organisations at the moment. Attackers are only becoming more sophisticated, and in fact, they're even using AI to increase their sophistication in terms of how they make those attacks. So one we've seen recently is MediSecure was subject to a cyber attack only recently. They're an organisation obviously holding a lot of medical information, Medicare card details, things like that. In fact, they've actually gone so far as to ask the government for a bailout to be able to help combat this particular one. So if organisations think, oh no, that's never going to happen to me, you're just wrong about that.
Not a matter of if, but when.
Exactly. So what we obviously want to do now is, because AI is the talk of everything in the industry at the moment, is we want to have a think about, can we utilise AI to help us with this cybersecurity threat that we have looming over us? So our next guest is going to take us through some of that, and I cannot wait to hear what he has to tell us.
All right, let's bring in the big guns. Anthony Woodward, CEO of Logicalis Australia. It's wonderful to have you with us. What forms or types of AI can organisations use in the context of cybersecurity? Are we using ChatGPT to fight off criminals? What's going on?
Well, a little bit, yeah. Thank you very much for having me both. AI actually brings a number of different ways that it can enhance cybersecurity. One of the things that the platforms that protect us from cybersecurity attacks need is lots and lots of information so that they can start to see trends and attack vectors that are new, that people are potentially not ready for, and be able to build defences quickly around those. And AI is excellent at picking out patterns and trends and changes to some of that data as it flows through. So the larger cybersecurity platforms are really starting to leverage AI to do that and to bring very quickly insights to those cybersecurity firms and platforms to very quickly protect people as the data changes, because it's very dynamic, as you just said.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. I wouldn't actually have thought about using AI for sort of predictive analysis kind of thing, and trying maybe to identify where some of those weaknesses are. So I think that that's a really good use of something that would be really difficult to do potentially manually.
100%.
But looking at, okay, how can we get these much more intelligent machines to do it at scale? So what kind of unique qualities do you think that AI can bring to a cybersecurity team?
Well, one of them is just being able to deal with that huge volume of data very quickly and find patterns. One of the data streams that it's actually very good at is video. And you can use AI to process security video, for example, and look for trends and changes and things that might be not what you had expected to see. I know you would have already seen some of the supermarkets, for example, using this just to protect their stock and to, for example, predict that a spill has occurred in aisle 7 and we need to get someone there quickly to protect our customers. Those sorts of things. AI is great at picking up things that appear a little bit out of the ordinary, and it saves someone having to sit looking at video streams day and daily.
Some of those video streams go for hours and hours. We're talking 48-hour video streams. But let's talk about what forms or types of AI. I joked about ChatGPT earlier, but what other platforms are people using in the context of cybersecurity?
Well, actually, you brought up ChatGPT, and it's a good example because large language models can be used to query a huge volume of cybersecurity information to try and get some insights for those people who are operating those platforms. So they might say, can you tell me about some trend that has happened over the last 3 months with that particular customer in that particular site? In the pre-ChatGPT world, you would have to learn how to build a very complex query in these platforms as an operator to find out that information. Just being able to ask it the question and have it then build that query behind the scenes, very quickly give you that insight, is a great use of large language models like ChatGPT uses.
It's spooky to think that there's something that I just go home and log on to and it can be used to take down corporations, etc. It's a very interesting space we're in. Are there reasons not to use AI when tackling cybersecurity, do you think?
Well, they're probably broader than just cybersecurity, and we know we've had plenty of warnings around the use of AI in some of these ways. For example, as a result of some of the data that AI models are trained on, there would be biases that we have in our everyday lives that are then built into the model. And, you know, the horror show sort of outcomes are where we might be alerted to potentially a bad actor based on a physical profile of a person that the AI saw in a video, which would be the wrong conclusion to jump to. But of course, the bias would be, you know, this is the way that we're actually going to lean. So that's certainly a problem. And another one is where AI, and you may have experienced this yourself with ChatGPT, hallucinates. They make stuff up. But the problem is, as users of the platforms, we can't easily distinguish between the factually correct output and a hallucination because they both have the same qualities. They both sound convincing. They both even have references that are made up in some cases.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to watch what it is that's coming out with that. So the believability, you kind of always need that sense check at the back end of a person looking at that information to see what it looks like.
Anthony, I think that's an absolutely critical point that you're making there, because not only if we're looking at it for, say, implementing, you know, large analysis for cybersecurity purposes, or if we're looking at it to help us write a blog, you know, in both sides of those, we need to approach AI with a sense of critical analysis and looking at it to make sure that, you know, it's not giving us biased information or inaccurate information, or, as I love the way you described it, it's not hallucinating and making up something altogether. One of the most important thing that individuals have when we start to talk about this is that skill of critical analysis, to be able to say, is this accurate? And we should look at that whether we're doing that really large processing or just writing an individual small thing. I think
we're all marking exams now. It feels like the teacher going through. Where did they pull that from? Where did you pull that from? Absolutely.
Actually, a number of my friends are teachers, and they say exactly the same. And they often will say, we can tell that you got this from AI, which is fine, but you've got to go back and reference it. You've got to go back and prove where all of this came from, which is, of course, an information integrity question, which is whole other topic. We'll get there. But Anthony, what's your recommendation for organisations to stay up to date with cybersecurity trends? Because, gosh, it just moves so fast. And particularly now with cyber threats becoming so much more sophisticated and advanced, how do we keep on top of all of that?
Well, the great news is that probably over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of progress in this space from government at many levels. And I often recommend people to go and visit cyber.gov.au because it has recommendations and the latest trends to suit individuals, to suit businesses. It even has helpful links to say, what do I do if I think I've been breached? Who should I be talking to? What steps should I be taking? What's the latest form of attack that I should be looking out for? So it's actually a very valuable site, and it's really helping organisations to have a central, trusted source of information that is not sensationalised, because, you know, it's easy enough to see the, you know, mega breaches that happen, but often behind the scenes is, well, how did that happen? And those details are often not released by those organisations.
Of course they're not. But what's the one thing business leaders should care about when it comes to cybersecurity and, I guess, the protection of the information and the data that they hold? We know it's things like consumer data as well as, you know, their own operational stuff.
I think there are a few things, and some of the larger breaches recently have really highlighted this one particular problem that companies and organisations have in relation to the data that they gather and they hold. And I'm going to reuse a term that I've heard, which is that data should be thought more of as like uranium than gold, which means You should keep as little of it as you need to do the job that you need, and then as quickly as you can dispose of that information when you don't need it anymore. Because it's those organisations that have collected years and years and years worth of data about lots and lots of people that may not even be customers anymore are still targets for cyber attackers. So I think the one question should be on every business's and organisation's mind is, what do I need to gather to do my job, and how long do I need to keep it for, and what do I do with it after that?
I love that analogy of
Me
uranium
too.
and gold. I think that's. I'm going to steal that one.
Oh,
If that's
no,
okay with you.
not before me. I will be stealing that one first because that was incredible.
It makes so much sense. And it all ties together. I mean, you could get quite specific and granular with it. If you've got somebody who was part of your consumer base at one point, and all the details are in there, how does that affect the people who are perhaps, if they're a deceased person or no longer a customer, etc.? How does that track to people who are still operating and whatnot? Anyway, I digress.
Absolutely. And then also we need to think about, Anthony, I think your last point there was absolutely spot on. I couldn't agree more with that. And as I said, I just love that analogy. But I think organisations have to start to say to themselves, like you said earlier, Mike, it's not if but when. So how do we minimise the damage of that? And minimising the damage of that is our uranium versus gold scenario, which is what is the least amount that I need to hang on to? Because if you don't have it, they can't hack it, kind of thing. So, going through information lifecycle processes and things like that is an important tool in how we approach cybersecurity, because it is a risk mitigation strategy as opposed to a let's stop it before they can get in, because as many organisations are finding out now, the wall isn't as strong as we thought it was. Or as I said earlier, their ability to get through is just...
The threat actors they're getting smarter and working
That's
harder.
exactly right.
Anthony, I want to thank you for joining us on the program and highlighting a little bit more about the space. It's obviously ever-changing, so hopefully we get to touch base again down the track.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
No worries at all. And of course, thank you to you for bringing such wonderful guests and topics to the platform.
Anthony just nailed that. Uranium versus gold. I will remember that.
One to take home. Guys, thank you so much for watching the program. Hopefully you've learned something from our discussion thus far. Go and change your passwords and add that two-factor authentication. That's my basic tips and tricks from me personally. But I look forward to seeing you all again very soon, right here on Ticker.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.